Hey guys, welcome to episode 48 of Reconstructing Cave Story. In this episode, we're going to be solving a couple of problems. The first problem we're solving is random death clouds. And then the second problem we're going to see pretty clearly after we solve this first problem is our particle draw order is a little bit off because the death cloud particles need to be drawn behind the foreground tiles. And right now we're drawing them in front of the foreground tiles, so it'll look a little off. Or at least it looks off to me. And maybe it looks off to you too, but it is off from the actual game. So let's start with the random death clouds. This is just going to be a really simple solution, so it's really quick, like maybe a couple minutes. We'll just create a static create random death cloud and just have it take in our particle tools and a number of particles and just have, and also an X and a Y, so X and a Y, so that it can just create a group of particles that spit out from a center X and a center Y. And just have an easy way of creating that death cloud particle effect for our bat. So let's start with this. Let's go into our death cloud particle.h and .cc and start with in here. So it's just going to be a static method. It's not going to return anything because it's just going to add stuff into our particle tools, but we will need to forward declare particle tools. And then say death cloud, create random death cloud. Did I say cloud or clouds? Cloud. I'm gonna say create random death clouds, plural. And then we'll say particle tools. It's also going to need a center X and a center Y. So units of game for center X and units of game for center Y. And finally, we need to know how many particles to create. So int num particles. That's just a That's just a number, so integer is fine with me. So I have a bit of a cold right now, so if my voice sounds nasally, that is why. So let's go into our CC file and implement this. Just right here above everything else, because I want it to be above everything else. And scope it in, death cloud, particle. And let's also include our particle tools. So that's in particle system. Oops. And then this is just going to be a simple for loop. So for int I equals 0, I is less than num particles plus I, and we'll just keep creating random particles. So let's do particle tools dot system dot add new particle, and we'll do a new death cloud particle, or let's do a boost shared pointer, sorry, to a death cloud particle, creating it with a new death cloud particle, giving it the particle tools graphics, center X and center Y, which is what we take in. Now speed is going to be something we'll calculate. I'm just going to do it in like, so right now I think we're creating a particle with about 0.12 f for our velocity. And we're just going to use that as our base like unit, I guess, of velocity. So it's either going to be 0, 1, 2 times that 0.12 f. So it's either going to be 0 of those velocities, 1 of those velocities, or 2 times those velocity, or that velocity. So I'll show you what I mean real quick. So we'll just say have const units of velocity, k base velocity, and this is 0.12 f, and so it's either going to be when it randomly decides what velocity to be, it's either going to be 0, 0.12, or 0.24. So it'll just be one of those 3 random velocities. I don't know if that's exactly right, but it looks just fine, so I'm going to go with that. So the way to do this is just to ran modulo 3 to get the 0, 1, or 2, and then multiply that times our k base velocity. So yeah, I'll pull that out in a second. And then finally, our angle is just going to be, again, ran modulo 360 to get some integer between 0 and 360. And it doesn't matter if it's not a partial degree or anything like that, because we don't really care because it's a particle effect. So let's see, do I get all my parentheses? Yeah, I think I did. So this is all we need. Yeah. Let's go into our game class, and instead of just creating a single death cloud particle, we'll use our create random death clouds. So let's go into game CC, and I'll show you where I mean. Right when the bat dies, so that's an update. Right here. So if not bat.update, then add new particle. So instead of this, we're going to do death cloud particle, create random death clouds. We're going to pass in our particle tools. And then also our center X and center Y, which is bat center X and bat center Y. So bat center X and bat center Y. And then finally num particles, which I'm just going to have it be 3 for our bat, but I'll just hard code it for now. And we can get rid of this and build and run and see how this looks. Conversion from int to units of degrees, possible loss of data. Oh yeah, so it wants me to cast this because this is an integer and it wants degrees, so I'll just do a static cast to units of degrees just to satisfy the compiler right here, and that's inside of death cloud particle CC, just casting this to degrees, and then rand here is expecting a velocity, but since we're multiplying an int times a velocity, we should get velocity units and be fine there. So build and run again. I'll run and bring this over. So let's look what happens when I shoot. And yeah, we get 3 random death clouds. I'm going to run it again, and I'll show you what the problem is now. So I'll shoot them down here, and you can see our death clouds go right over our foreground tiles, and that doesn't look right. And it's not how it's done in the game. So that's the big thing we're going to fix in this episode. So that brings us to our next problem, which is the clouds should be drawn behind the walls. Basically, the clouds should be drawn behind the walls in player, while other particles like gunshot should be still drawn in front of the walls. So it just brings up this problem of draw order, like which particles should be drawn in front of the walls, and some particles should be drawn behind the player. So how do we get this to happen? And so my initial solution was to I should annotate this as initial idea for a solution, and this was just to have a layer type inside of our particle system and just have it be an enum that's either a front layer or an entity layer, and then whenever you draw or add a new particle, it will take in this layer type. And you know, that totally actually I implemented it this way originally and it worked just fine, but I thought of a simpler solution after I did that, so I mean, might as well go with a simpler solution, and that is to simpler solution, and that was just to add another particle system, and we can have 2 particle systems. One is front particle system, another is entity particle system. So that this would be drawn in the entity layer, and by the entity layer I mean it's like drawn behind the player and behind the walls, and by the front layer I mean it's drawn in front of the walls. So we could have two particle systems and then put both of them in our particle tools and then let you decide which where it's going to get drawn based on which particle system you put it into. And I actually like this solution a lot better because it means I don't need to add complexity to our particle system class, and it just ends up being simpler. So we're going to do it this way instead of my initial idea. But I just thought I'd tell you about my initial idea just so you know about it. Now you know. So the place we're going to be starting is in our particle tools, which is inside of our particle system.h. And we're just going to add in that and change. Here, I'll show you. So this will be, instead of just having particle system, we'll have front system and entity system. And this means we're going to need to change a lot of calls, but that's fine because I was kind of expecting that. But now we know, now we can specify which system we're putting our particles into, and then we'll draw them differently inside of our game. So let's make a change to our games class next. And that change is going to be to have two particle systems, front particle system and entity particle system. And we'll be passing both of those into our particle tools creation. So let's do, what order did I do it in? Front system and entity system. So let's do front particle system followed by entity particle system. And we're going to need to change what we're updating and drawing to, but that's a given. Let's look for where we do our other particle tools, and I'll just paste that in. I guess I could make a private variable that gets the particle tools. No, I don't think I'm going to do that right now because I think I just got everything, and that was easy enough. Okay, so let's do particle system.update. So we'll change this to front particle system.update and entity particle system.update. And then for drawing, this is drawing at the end. So this is our front particle system.draw. But we also need to do one right behind the player, which is our entity system particle system.draw. So now we need to go through and change our calls to creating particles. So I'm going to build to make this easier to find them because it'll just show me where the errors are. System is not a member of particle tools, and this is in Polarstar CC. So instead, we're going to add these to the front system. Most of these will be in the front system. Also in the player class, I remember we had some particles. Which all go in the front system because they get drawn in front of the walls still. And then our death cloud particle, create random death cloud, will go in the entity system. And I think there's one more, but I might be wrong. I was wrong. Okay, so let's see how this looks. Shoot, and well, these are still getting drawn in front of the wall. That's good. I couldn't see, I don't think any of them got shot downwards, so let's see, try this again. Yeah, so they get drawn behind the walls now, which is perfect and what we want. So that is actually the end of this episode. So thanks for watching, guys, and happy developing.